You're watching She's Gone Country, growing up on the Christensen Brothers Rodeo Ranch. Becky and Vicki are sharing the roots of rodeo and connecting the generations with stories behind the stories of our rich Western heritage. Keeping the spirit of the American Cowboy and Cowgirl alive, they are the CB Cowgirls.
Good morning. Welcome to Roper Cowboy Marketplace. It is Sunday already, and can you believe it?
No, it's went by really quickly.
Well, I'm your host, Becky Christensen-Mapston. This is my co-host, Vicki Christensen-O'Shieles, and we welcome you to Mandalay Bay and to our show. It's been a long few days. We've been going since Thursday. We've had some great guests so far.
Oh, wow, we have, Becky. We've had some really great guests. We have a full guest lineup all the way through next Saturday, and we're especially excited this year because the Cowboy Channel is here filming.
Yes, and so for those of you in the audience, we will be taking a break, and we'll pause and come back, so just want to let you know. Let's bring up our guests.
Let's do it. Well,
you go ahead and bring our first guest up.
Are y'all ready? Our first guest we're going to bring up is a Western author, and he is a native of Coloradian, and we want to welcome to our stage Denny Bertrand. Denny, come right over here and sit.
Denny. Denny's become a really good friend of ours, and
right, he sure has. We're going to bring all our guests up, yes, Becky, and then come back and visit with you, Danny.
Yep, go ahead and set your books there. Next to the stage, we want to bring up a gentleman who, he and his wife have spent most of their life serving the PRCA and Cowboys in the Western Way of Life, and it's a special year for them winding up, and we're excited to have them on the show. So I'm going to bring to the stage Ted Weise. Linda, bless her heart, she is not with us today, his wife. She's home. Well, I say home because we're here for so long that it feels like it's home. She's down for the count, so we wish her well, and we'll pray over her. And then our next guest that we're going to bring to the stage is a country music artist out of Texas, and we're going to bring to the stage Austin English.
Welcome, Austin.
We got the men up here today.
We do. You know, Linda was going to balance out this act, Ted, and we are just so sorry she is not here. We truly hope she feels better soon. Well, Denny, let's start with you. You know, we were talking, welcome. How was your trip to Vegas?
It was good.
Great.
Vicki, a good trip down.
Great. So, when did y'all get in?
We got in yesterday morning.
Well, we're really pleased to have you, Denny, and we have a lot to talk about. And I guess to start things off, let's find out a little bit about, you know, the writing bug hit you a little bit later on in life in another season, which is wonderful because it's not what you did not write books when you were younger.
No, I didn't. I spent most of my lifetime working on ranches and feed yards, and livestock auctions, and announcing rodeos. And I got started writing where I really started writing about 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, and you worked in a lot of sale barns, and I know you were a team roper and bulldogger, correct?
Yes, I team rope, I bulldogged, and plus announced rodeos for 37 years.
And where did you grow up, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I was raised in Salida, Colorado, in central Colorado.
So you're Colorado native, through and through.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful part of the country. And of course, now I know that you call Cortez, Colorado home. And that's just not very far over the New Mexico line up towards Red Mesa, Durango, Colorado.
Yeah.
Beautiful part of the Western Front. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Denny, tell us a little bit about that very first book.
My first book was a cowboy poetry book called Western Poetry with a Cowboy Flair. It was published in 2010, and in 2012, I won my first Will Rogers Medallion Award with that book.
Well, it's fabulous.
Well, and what is it about the Western way of life that inspired you? Because I know that you did poetry for a while, but that really wasn't where your calling was. You really were drawn to the Western.
I kind of like these short story deals I'm doing. I've had a lot of fun with them, and the characters I picked, you know, I pick on a lot of friends through my books and in my books. So.
It's that code name, which really is like one of your best friends, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Becky, I'll let you go ahead and talk about Ted because, you know, we want all of you to join in, visit with each other. We're going to come back and talk more about what Denny does, and you have some great books here on the table. But
yes,
tell our audience about Ted.
Well, and what I want to preface before I introduce Ted and talk a little bit more about Ted is She's Gone Country, the CB Cowgirls is all about empowering heritage and sharing the stories behind the story to keep the the spirit of the American Cowboy alive. And Ted and Linda have spent their lives serving the community. And there is no doubt and no question that the CB Cowgirls are very much faith-based. We love the Lord, and we love to elevate those that serve God and serve our communities, and that's what you've spent your life doing. So share with our listeners and our audience a little bit about your ministry, Cowboy Bistro, Rockin W Ministry.
Well, it's been quite a ride. We've been actually incorporated ministry for 30...
Yeah, if you hold your mic up just a little bit.
35 years, I guess. And but we've been out on the road cooking for the PRCA Cowboys for 18 years. This is our 16th year at the NFR, and met Linda 52 years ago in church, and fell in love with her, and we got married. We've been married 51 years, so we've had a real good relationship together. But our relationship with the Lord has been awesome. You know, when you marry someone that loves the Lord as much as you do, it just makes a difference in your relationship. So we brought that into the feeding of the Cowboys ministry, and what we do is we have a 38-foot bloomer, I hate to advertise, but a bloomer trailer, and they converted it for us into a mobile kitchen with living quarters. It's a 14-foot living quarters, so we can't have a lot of cooks in there. It's just me and Linda, and she gets aggravated with me at times, I'm sure. And but we like here, we'll get up at 5:30 in the morning, go out to the Thomas and Mack and start preparing for the evening meal. And we have 3 ovens in the kitchen, and triple sink, and 4-burner stove, and freezer, and fridge. But we start off, and I'm the dessert person. Linda's the main meal deal. She put a roast in the oven last night, and so this morning she said she wasn't going to go anywhere for a while, and I said, well, I'll check the roast for you. So I opened it up and stuck a fork in it, and it was done. And so not only did I twist it to make sure it was done, but I had to taste it too. So it was really, really good. So the Cowboys and their family, Cowboys are in for a treat tonight with we're having roast beef and redskin mashed potatoes, corn, gravy on the potatoes, and I made a strawberry cake for tonight.
Wow.
Did you taste it also?
What's that?
Did you do the taste test on the strawberry cake?
Not yet. I hadn't put the icing on it yet. That's wait until I get back.
Becky and I'll be there, Ted. We promise. After this,
it's one of the favorites. The strawberry cake's one of the favorites. Banana pudding. You old codger, you. Banana pudding's one of the favorites. Strawberry trifle is one of the favorites, and I'll do all the desserts. But Linda, Linda has a mama's heart. And that's what this has all been about, is us being the parents of the kids that are rodeoing out on the road without any parents or home cooking. And so that's what we do. We're their mom and dad, and that's what they call Linda, is mama.
Yep.
And so they come to her, and they'll stick their head in the door, and she'll have a scripture for them or just something to tell them that we love them.
Home away from home.
When we started out, what God showed us was, you go love these Cowboys like I love them. I said, that's probably not as easy as it sounds.
Well, whoever would have thought that, going down the pro rodeo road, that, Ted and Linda are set up and they're cooking behind the scenes for today's pro rodeo athletes. And I love it, Becky, when you shared this with me this morning, where it says, wonderful food, made with love, for free, and no strings.
That's it.
And you can't help but always love having a role model and a mentor and just that additional touch of love when you're out on the road and you're traveling, because the road gets weary and everybody loves a home-cooked meal, especially those boys that are out traveling and they're away from their mamas.
Yeah, they really do. And that relationship that we've built with them over the last 18 years has meant a lot. And, when we first started, they didn't know who we were.
I want to introduce our musician here on stage, and that is Mr. Austin English. Austin, share with our audience a little bit about yourself. You're from Texas. You're a country musician. How long have you been in the business?
Well, I started doing shows in 2003 when I was in high school. And we had a band, started it up for a talent show, and somebody from the chamber was like one of the guest judges that night at the high school. and they thought it was cute, I guess. And then they booked us at a show, and they gave us money to play guitar, and it screwed up everything after that.
Somebody's going to pay us money?
Yeah, you can do this for money?
You know, I played an air guitar one time in a talent show, and nobody paid me for that. That might have been a good
Becky,
gig.
we'll revisit that again later. That would be walk like an Egyptian.
Yes. 7th grade. So
Well, and
For real?
yeah,
Did that happen?
yeah.
that did happen.
You got pictures? You got pictures, don't you? Somewhere.
Whole band, all girl band. Yes. So tell us a little bit about your inspirations and why did you pick country music, and where did that all stem from?
Well, I grew up in a rodeo family. My dad was a team roper. My stepdad was a bareback rider, and so from the time I was born until I was about 8, until my stepdad broke his leg, we were always going to rodeos somewhere. And after that, he got into cutting horses, and so we just always listened to Chris Ledoux and George Strait and Tom Petty and the Eagles. So it was cut away for me, before I even realized what I was into.
Well, and we know that, you're a singer-songwriter, and I know that you're going to share some of your music with us a little later on in the program. But the thing, Becky, that I think is so unique about the rodeo world is that all of us here on this stage come from different parts, different parts. We live in different parts of the country, but we all share that one particular thing, and that is the love of the Western way of life.
Yes. And we all are contributing in the best way that we know how in our gifts and talents to give back to that community. So I know one of the questions that I have, and either any of you can answer this, maybe we'll start with Austin and you guys jump in, is being in the Western world and being raised with those characteristics and upbringing, do you think it's giving you advantage in your career and in life just in general with the way you were raised?
Well, I don't know about my career, but it definitely helps you out in everyday life with, just how to live and how to treat people and, respect and kindness. And that's the general theme of everybody here, I think.
Yeah. And, most people do, parents raise their children to have those characteristics, but there's just something a little different about the Western world. And I know, Ted, you can speak to that because you see so many cowboys and cowgirls, and you've been down that rodeo trail and ministered to them. What do you have to add to that?
Well, I wasn't raised in a rodeo family. My dad was a preacher, and I wanted to ride bulls, and they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't sign a release. And so as a good preacher's son, I went to a bull riding with some friends and had a fake ID and was able to get on a bull.
All right.
So all preacher kids need to do that. So anyway, so that's how I started in the rodeo world is I rode a lot of amateur bull riding, some pros. But yeah, these cowboys, we're a family. That's the Western way, the rodeo family. We're just family. If you'll watch on the monitor as you're watching the rodeo, the steer wrestlers are so competitive, but they're so family-oriented, wanting their buddy to do just as good as they've done, if not better. And that's what makes rodeo cowboys different than the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with that because when we were covering media at the Columbia River Circuit Finals, it's always really fun to watch the Knowles steer wrestler, Blake and Trevor, because they're cousins. And then Jesse Brown, he's kind of an adopted family member into the fold. And they're just always right there for each other and prepping each other and pushing each other. And if one's not bulldog and the other one's hazing, and it's a very special time to see that bonding.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And Denny, you living there in Colorado, and I know we just visited with you in October at the Red Steagle gathering in Fort Worth.
Will Rogers.
Right, you were down there for the Will Rogers Award.
Medallion Award.
So your world, writing your books about ranch life and that type of thing, it all ties into what all of us are doing here, and it's about our roots, about the stories behind the stories.
Yes.
Share with us, if you will, tell us about the trilogy.
The trilogy is this book was just released here this last month. It's a book of all three of my Somewhere Out West short story series. And see. This book was published in 2016. It was the Will Rogers Award winner that year. The Somewhere on a Ranch was published was the award winner for 2017. Then my other two books, Somewhere Out West, In the Middle of Nowhere, and Somewhere Out West, the trilogy, will be up for the Will Rogers this year. Plus, the trilogy is also nominated to the Western Heritage Award at the National Cowboy Hall Museum, to the Western Writers of America, and also to the Will Rogers. And then Somewhere Out West in the Middle of Nowhere is nominated for the Will Rogers.
Okay, and then right now, of course, we're going to show this to y'all because we're especially proud for Denny that this is the medallion he just won from the Will Rogers Medallion Award in Fort Worth, and that was for the book Somewhere Out West on a Ranch.
Yes.
And so you follow a theme in your books, a couple of cowboys out west on a ranch, and
Petey and Cecil.
They're visiting
Petey
back and
Cecil,
forth.
Yeah. And now I've taken it another step. I'll go ahead and add this. I am now working on a kid's book using Petey and Cecil, taking them back to their school days in the 1950s and 60s.
Well, and what is the theme you hope to convey to those teens that read your books?
Well, I'm trying, and like Petey and Cecil, they do the same bumbling stuff as they do as grown-ups. But in these books, they get a whipping when they do something wrong. They get in trouble. They have chores to do. I'm just showing kids, trying to show kids what the ranch life is like for kids out working on a ranch. You know, I'm not sugarcoating anything or, you know.
It was a different time in the 50s and the 60s.
You bet.
And it was a good time.
Yes,
at least that's what I've been told. I'm kind of glad that I maybe missed the 50s and 60s because I probably would have got whooped a few more times than I did. But spankings never did me any good.
No, not you, Beck. Wouldn't have happened, I promise. Well, you know, another thing to think about, too, is that by people being able to read your books, your stories, these children growing up and seeing a side of living they've never seen before, you know, it just made me think the other day, there was a commercial on TV, something about a little gal wanted to see the stars, and she looked around her, and all there was city lights. And her daddy loaded her up in a car and drove to the country, and she could look up and see the stars. And
they were eating Oreos.
Yeah, that's something that we take for granted if we live in the country, is that, you know, that's our night lights. Yeah.
Well, and Ted, when you're traveling down the road and you're seeing these cowboys, because, and it could be me getting older, but I feel like the cowboys are getting younger that are out on the PRCA trail. So it could be a culmination of both, but...
They are getting younger. When you see an 18-year-old cowboy come out and you wonder why he's still a little wet behind the ear, and, you know, with Linda and I, we're fading out this year. We see kids we've never seen before, and it's exciting that they've come out like they have. And there's a lot of young cowboys out there. We're going to see a lot of great cowboys.
Well, and Austin, you gave away your age to some degree. And you said you're in high school in 2003, so.
Ish. I was ahead, you know.
Oh yeah. So I mean, everything as we get older, you know, there's the younger generation coming up, and I think it's important because I think we all play an intricate part in raising and influencing those the youth that are coming up. And I'm really excited to be able to and most of all today, Aunt Vicki and I want to honor Ted and Linda because they are going to be retiring out of the business, and we need wisdom and your ministries to touch those lives. And so we thank you for that. We are here in Las Vegas at the Roper Cowboy Marketplace on the Roper stage at Mandalay Bay. It's been a great week.
It's been a great week, and we're just really super excited. We have 3 guests sitting here beside us today, and we've been visiting with each one of them, and they all come from a different walk of life, but yet their story of their roots ties all of us together.
Well, and something as I'm looking at each one of your bios and the things that I've read about you is, again, it's a testament to how our generations and heritage play such an intricate part in growing up. And Austin, when I'm reading about you, I'm looking at the music that you gravitated toward. And I can't help but giggle a little bit because some of your influences were Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen, and they're the greats. the Mavericks, Hank Williams Jr., and like you said, George Strait. And I laugh because I can't help but think about when I was a little girl, and my dad, he loved Bruce Springsteen, and he loved Steve Earle. And I can remember one time we were at the Tom Tom in Roseburg, and I don't even know if the Tom Tom's still open, but he drove a white Cadillac, and he would pull that Cadillac into the parking lot at the Tom Tom, and he would crank Guitar Town and Bruce Springsteen, and he'd get out in the parking lot, and he would just dance. So I like the fact that they were an influence for you as well, because they were for me.
They were a big influence for me. Matter of fact, when I was in Nashville, I went to Ernest Tubbs' record shop there on Broadway this summer, and I found Steve Earle's Guitar Town album on vinyl, the original. I was like, yes. So. Well, and
whose store did you stop by, did you say?
Ernest Tubbs' record shop.
Yeah, Ernest
down
Tubbs
there on Broadway.
Yeah, and Deb Copenaver's here with us this week, and hopefully he'll be able to join us on stage. And he used to sing in his back in the old day at his honky tonk bar way up in Creston, Washington, with Ernest Tubbs. That's really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so Steve Earle and Bruce Springsteen, all those guys. You know, I grew up on all that, and then, you know, Chris Ledoux I thought was so cool because he was singing about horses and doing his own thing, and I was like, man, I know all about that stuff.
I can do that. And, of course, coming from Texas, I mean, you know, you're right down there, not very far from Austin, about 3.5 hours south from Fort Worth. And that's the live music capital of the world. And, you know, Texas music is huge all over. So lots of places.
Yeah, it's exploding. I grew up in Elgin, which is just about 30 minutes east of Austin there. And so right after high school and college, I was playing on 6th Street like twice a month down there.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I was there a lot. And then I moved to College Station for a while and started working, started school out there, ended up starting a band, and then we started touring, and, you know, that just kind of took the main focus of everything.
Well, I don't know if he, you know, Austin just mentioned Elgin. Now, that's going to make me hungry because Elgin is famous for sausage and, oh, my gosh.
Hot gut sausage.
All right, after the show, with that strawberry cake of Ted's, okay?
Yes. Now, Ted, I have a question for you. I know that you and Linda do the cooking. Linda has a culinary degree, and she picked that up specifically for continuing and growing your ministry. Is that correct?
Yeah, she'd always told me she wanted to be a chef, and so I said, why don't you go work at a restaurant and see if you really want to be a chef, because their work is strenuous. They don't have family time. And so she went and worked at a real fine dining restaurant out of Coalinga, California, and she hated it. But she said, I know God has called me to be a chef. So we go up to the Northwest to a Puyallup rodeo, and we went with a bulldogger friend and his wife. And he was coming out of the scone booth where they give them scones for entering the rodeo. And so this particular cowboy came out with his arms just full of scones, and before he could know it, they were all gone. The cowboys were grabbing them. And God gave her a panoramic vision of what we were to do, and that was to go to rodeos and feed these rodeo cowboys. And so then we met a chaplain for the IndyCar racers, and he took us around the IndyCar race there in California to the food where they fed these teams. Well, they're a little higher caliber than what we are, but that's just the way they rolled, and we rolled the other way. But so then she really had the desire to go out, and she has such a mama's heart that's the whole key in cooking for these rodeo cowboys and cowgirls and their family, is to have that heart for them and for their, you know, like a mama would.
Well, and a question that I have, too, is because the cowboys that you see are so much younger in this generation, what do you think the one thing is that you impact them the most? I mean, what is it they desire and that they need at that age, being out on the road?
What they need? All they need to do is go get on another bull or rope another calf. You know, that's their focus.
Right.
And so we try to tell them there's more to life than rodeo, and there is. And so that's what we try to do, and we try to live the Christian life that God has called us to live. And but no, their focus is rodeo.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I'm amazed at the number of places that you and Linda travel. I mean, you know, you're talking about Puyallup, Western Washington Fair. I know we were in Pendleton met Becky in Pendleton. My husband and I did in 2014? 14. And we just missed you. We were, grabbing some interviews out front, and we ran back to the back because we knew y'all were there. But we had missed you. And I know, Ted, that a lot of these cowboys, and there's a lot, like you were talking about, young, they really have to have a feel of home, don't you think, Becky?
Yes, and I know. I mean, my son is out on the road. He's not a cowboy by any means, but he's traveling all over the country right now, and I know the one thing that he loves when he gets home is a home-cooked meal. So I know that they get weary on the road, and having a Linda there to add the mom touch to it, there's something to be said about, mamas and their boys, and even if they're an adopted mom, so to speak.
One thing I've tried to teach the rodeo cowboys, cowboys are macho. They're big. Bulldoggers are great big, and I'm a little old bitty dwarf when it comes to the bulldoggers. But one thing God showed me to teach them was how to hug man to man. And men, if you're watching, it's okay to hug another man in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
And let you know you love them. But I've taught a lot of these guys how to hug and taught them how to say, I love you. That's prime in this day especially, is to tell somebody you love them and you appreciate them. We're living in a world where there's not much appreciation.
And there's some people that grow up that never hear those 3 words, Ted.
Yeah, and we had a bulldogger tell Linda, said that his daddy never hugged him and never told him he loved him. And it just made us weep.
Yes.
Yeah. Touch is a physical touch and affirmation of words. They're such an important part of just the genetics and growing up and how our brains are formed and so forth. So, yeah, it is something. It can be learned, though. That's the beauty of it. It can be learned.
That is, and you can learn it anytime in your life because it's a gift to be given. Well, Denny, tell us a little bit. We're down here at this end of the table again. A particular memory that has really stuck with you over the years that you've learned, that you've perhaps brought into your thought process, into your books, something that's just stuck with you?
I think basically it was all of my life. My dad was a state brand inspector. So I was raised around the farm and ranch people. So I think this is where I'm able to relate these stories that I do. And then one of my characters in the book, he's a real live person, and he's one of my best friends. And anyhow, a lot of this stuff is true. Him and I pulled a lot of these stunts. So we never did work together. We worked in the same areas, but we roped a lot together and ran around a lot, when we was teenagers. But anyhow, that's kind of how all these stories came about. And when I started writing the series, I have a real good friend in California. Dale Jackson is another author. And I was talking to Dale, and I told him kind of the theme I was going with, and he says, somebody needs to be writing contemporary. He says, all of these writers are writing these Old West books where they shoot around a tree and hit 10 guys with 1 bullet. But he says, nobody's getting the history down of now.
Yes,
and
correct.
And that's kind of what influenced me the most in my books.
Well, I'm excited to see where your book with the teens is going to go. I think it's a needed book. Where and how do folks get a hold of your books?
All the books are available on Amazon, or you can go to my Facebook page somewhere out west.
Okay.
And if you want to order a book, we do PayPal. I'll mail the books direct to you. They don't come through a distributor. They'll be signed and mailed direct by me.
Well, and with Christmas coming up, what a wonderful gift to give someone. I've always believed that the spoken word is the spoken word. We hear it once, but the written word, we can go back and open that book again and again and again, and it will speak to us each time, perhaps a little differently, but it does talk.
Well, and something I wanted to say, too, is I think it's really important that you buy the actual book. I know we can download books and we can do all those things, but there's something about having a physical book in your hand, because once you read it and it touches your heart, you can pass it on to someone else.
Yes, I agree with that. I do.
Yeah. So, again, make sure that you look for Denny's books. He's got a new one coming out, and I know he's got many others that he's working on that will be released later with more detail. We're honoring Ted and Linda, who is not with us. She's ill at the moment, but we're honoring them today with their years of service in the ministry and serving our cowboys and cowgirls and sharing the love of God and
providing a good home-cooked meal, hearty meal, and a hug.
And like they say, they're more than a cowboy church. They're living a lifestyle, being role models and mentors. And so we sincerely say thank you for your service. And before we bring Austin up to do his set, we wanted to give you a gift of appreciation for your service. So this is from Trace Rios Silver. This is for Ted.
That's for you, Ted.
It's a beautiful, beautiful night.
And Trace Rios as well.
And Trace Rios is in Llano, Texas, and they are our
that's for Linda.
Sponsor. And we just wanted to say thank you and tell you that we love you and we appreciate you.
Absolutely, and this is from the whole crew of the CB Cowgirls and for the worship team.
Yes, we have a worship service we're doing Wednesday, December 13th from 8 until 11 over at the Orleans, and so it's from our worship team as well for your service, so thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
All right, Austin, we're going to let you take it away.
The song's called Minus You. It was on my first album. All right, try it again. This is Minus You. The days have been running together. I can't escape the bad weather. It tends to hang its hat over my head. When you left, my world started stopping, my back started aching, the sanity popping. Then it seems I'm living in hell, but moving forward, living my life, driving down the road, sun shining bright, singing every song on the radio that does make me blue. I'm never going back, Lord, I'm feeling just fine. Got money in my pocket, I think I'm alright. Been doing the same things I used to, living happily ever after, minus you. Mama told me, boy, be smart. That little girl's gonna break your heart, leave you with a bad disposition. You know she was right. Oh, about your cheating, that's holding my heart, not getting no sleeping. But now I've got a confession, and I'm moving forward, living my life, driving down the road, sun shining bright, singing every song on the radio that doesn't remind me of you. I'm never going back, girl, I'm feeling just fine. Got money in my pocket, I think I'm alright. I've been doing the same things I used to, living happily ever after, minus you. Never going back, feeling just fine. Money in my pocket, I think I'm alright. I've been doing the same things I used to, living happily ever after, minus you, minus you, yeah, minus you. Hey, thank you. I got one more. This is She Loves a Fire. It's going to be on my new album coming out in April. She could feel the embers burning, smell the smoke from 100 miles away, see the light shining bright, hot enough to turn midnight to day. Lord knows this ain't the first time just can't take the flame. Her desire sits and smolder like the burning end of a late night cigarette. A half-empty bottle tastes like 100 proof regret. No, she prays that things are different, but hope somewhere they're still the same. With a can of gas and a single match, she's gonna light 'em up again. She loves the fire, she just can't take the flame. And all the burning desires calling out her name. By now she should know better. She's the only one to blame. She loves the fire, she just can't take the flame. She loves the fire, she just can't take the flame.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Austin. Tell our listeners, if you would, where can they find your music?
You can go to my website, austinenglishmusic.com. You can go to Spotify, you can go to iTunes, you can go to Amazon, the Google Store if you have an Android phone.
You're everywhere.
Pretty much anywhere online that you can go.
Awesome.
All right.
Except Pandora for some reason.
You'll get
You
there.
need to talk to somebody over there.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today on She's Gone Country, the CB Cowgirls. We appreciate you. We thank you for all you're bringing to the community of the Western world. And I'm going to turn it over to Aunt Vicki.
And until tomorrow, have courage, but strive for honor.
Well, yes, well, it's so important to strive for honor.
It is. It's so important to strive for honor. And it's, I don't know, thank you. You honor all of us and the Western way of life.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
having us on.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And will you please do me a favor, Ted? Will you let Linda know that we wish she could have been here? We are thankful for everything she did and does, and that I'm sure you guys are going to have a great, great retirement.
Yeah, and we're not really retiring. We're just retiring from cooking. We're gonna do Bible studies across the Western world, and it's gonna be. But I will. She would have made us all look better, but especially us men.
Okay, well, and that's one thing, too. Maybe you can lay back and not do the dishes for a while, Ted. Thank you all very much, and thank all of you for being with us today.